Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and for the last time in 2023, welcome to the latest episode of the Hard Compound Live. For those of you who don't know, my name's Rich and I run and operate the Hard Compound. We're a one-stop shop for all things motorsport, and we can be found on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Search for the Hard Compound on any of those. Look for the cool little black and yellow logo, and that will be us. Come and give us a follow. We generally put out 3 posts a day, morning, lunchtime, and in the evening here in the UK. These are in the form of any race reviews, race previews, breaking news, good news and bad news, unfortunately, of course. We do throwbacks and birthdays, and we have the odd theme day as well, where we just write about a subject. We're currently doing Spa Sundays, about Spa-Francorchamps. So lots and lots of stuff going on. So do come along and give us a follow. We'd hate for you to miss out on all the good stuff. In case you hadn't noticed, we also do live video interviews such as this one. These are broadcast live as we are now on Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitter. They're also recorded on Facebook and YouTube in the video section on Facebook and the live section on YouTube. We've done well over 120 of these. I'm not going to name all the guests, but we've had a wide variety of guests from across the motorsport spectrum. We've had the honour and the privilege of speaking with Mr. Mario Andretti, with Chip Ganassi, with John Watson, guys such as Brian Redman, Mike Wilds. We've also had Matt Bishop, the comms director from Aston Martin F1, Tom Gamel, who does this Sky coverage for IndyCar. We spoke with Martin Donnelly, with like Tommy Byrne, Karen Chandhok, Mika Salo, Ari Lyondike, Carl Wendlinger. Happy birthday, Carl. We've like Danny Sullivan, Willie T. Ribbs, Alex Palou, Will Power, Scott Pruitt. And a lot of the British Touring Car Championship grid as well, and many, many others. Yes, we've got another guest to add to our ever-growing list, and it's someone that I have been wanting to speak with for a while, because she's had an amazing rise up through the motorsport world, from essentially being on a farm to being behind the wheel of some of the best machinery in the UK and beyond. So without any further ado, we're going to bring her in right now. One of the best young drivers, I believe, in the UK. And we're going to bring her in right now. Please join me in extending a very warm welcome to Jodie Sloss.
Hello, guys. I'm excited to be one of your last podcasts before Christmas. This feels special.
This is the last one. We are going out with a bang, clearly.
Clearly, yeah.
Yeah. We've been trying to get this together for a while, but we thought we'll wait till the end, do it properly.
Do it properly. Most special time just before Christmas.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If anyone's got any Christmas puns or anything, put them in the comments. We can have a smile and a laugh while we're at it. Jodie, thank you very much for coming on, having a chat. I know you've been very busy this year, so I appreciate you coming on and sparing your Wednesday evening. Much appreciated.
No, of course. It's been an absolute crazy year for me. I mean, this last 18 months of my life, I love to do these interviews. You've had some extraordinary people on these interviews, and it's a really cool concept what you're doing. So I'm excited to tell everyone about my story.
Yeah, and it is a cracking story. I just want to say hello to some people in the comments section. Hello, folks. You've already tuning in. Any questions you have? And we've got Indira Flack is in. Indira, good to see you from the Great British Racing Drivers Exhibition. Terrific photographer who you worked with, didn't you, Jodie? You did.
Yes, we've done a very cool concept with her book, and if you haven't already, definitely jump on that book, guys. And there's some amazing people in there as well that's been involved with that. But there is actually a really cool photo shoot that we done with me on the back of a black Frisian horse, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to touch on the horsey thing very, very soon. I'm going to do a bit of a plug here because some of the people that are in her book, guys like Anthony Reid and Jason Plato, I think John Watson as well. They've also been on here for a chat. So yeah, they're in the video section. So check them out as well. So check out her book, check out the videos, and we'll all be one big happy family. But first things first, how's the Christmas prep going? Because we've got 5 days, haven't we? Any
Yeah,
good?
I feel like this is the type of week whenever you bump into somebody, they're like, "How's your Christmas going? How's your prep going?" And it's always a mad rush. I feel this year I'm not prepared. I just got back from America, and then I realized I had about a week and a half until Christmas, but it's going well. I'm really excited to be back home in the motherland of Scotland and
Yeah.
to spend some time with my family.
Lovely, excellent. I think you can be excused for not being organised for Christmas this year because it's been
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to touch on that very shortly. But I mean, as you alluded to, I mean, you've been to some terribly boring places in the last few weeks, haven't you? You've
Yeah.
been all over the place.
Yeah, to be honest, before I started racing 18 months ago, I didn't really have a passport or anything, so we'll get into it, but I used to have horses, so I would never had the ability to really leave my house much because I had horses to look after and stuff. I had a lot of commitments at home. So motorsports has not only brought a lot of light into my life, but it's made me travel a lot. I've been to Abu Dhabi, Las Vegas, Austin, Mexico. It's been a really surreal year, and I'm so grateful for the opportunities and experiences I've been able to witness.
Yeah, fantastic. I must admit, I was particularly jealous of Las Vegas just because
That
it's a
was cool,
brilliant
wasn't
city.
it?
It's brilliant, but I don't know about you. I couldn't stay for more than 4 days. I was just like, well, I'm done.
Yeah.
That's enough.
Well, that's what I said after the Grand Prix. I was like, 2 or 3 days is enough for me in Las Vegas.
I'm glad it wasn't just me when I went. Good. But no, very, very cool. And we'll come to that very shortly. Just saying, we've got hello to Lorenzo Pellegrino. Hi from Italy. That's cool. Thank you for tuning in from Italy. Excellent. Right. So we sort of touched on the present with what you're doing with your
Yeah.
traveling and racing and everything else. And we also touched on where you began.
Mhm.
You, as you said, I mean, you're now I can say this because I've got family from Scotland.
Yeah.
Oban has, where you're from. There's been quite a lot of sports folk have come out of there. Obviously, we've got
Mhm.
Susie Wolf's come out of Oban.
Yeah.
I believe John McPhee, the motorcycle rider,
Mhm.
and Robert McIntyre, the golfer, and
Yep.
got a population of about 8,000 people. You live outside there, but it doesn't look like the kind of place a racing driver would come from. How did it all start with you and speed and adrenaline and noisy things?
Yeah. Every time someone says that, I just say there must be something in the water in Oban because I have no
Absolutely.
idea how the Oban Times newspaper is keeping up with all these people that are coming out of Oban. But yeah, I've got a very unique story. So Oban, if nobody knows where it is, it's very west coast, kind of in the Highlands of Scotland. I live just outside of it. And I was brought up in a croft with horses and a lot of animals and quad bikes and stuff like that. So motorsports is really not in my radius up here in the Highlands of Scotland. So how it all started really was everyone's mind when I say it, but I seen an advert on Facebook. I've always really been into cars ever since I was 17 and I was able to pass my license. I own a BMW E36 328. Always been a BMW girl, and I've always had a passion for cars. But personally, motorsports was never on my radar because there wasn't many females or people that I knew, like my family and stuff, that I could like really look up to. Of course, we have Susie Wolf and stuff, but at that point in the time, it was kind of only her that was in my reach of things and who I could kind of look up to. But motorsports wasn't on my radar, so it was a competition to essentially find the next female champion in motorsports, and I did not really go into it to win the prize of a seat in a McLaren 570S. And the GT Cup,
That must have felt miles away when you started.
yeah, honestly, it was that far away from my reach that I just thought that's not going to happen. And it wasn't not having self belief, it was just the fact of I never knew I had this hidden ability to drive or race a car. I knew that I was a capable driver, of course, but I didn't really understand what that kind of would resolve to. So I went to this assessment day at Knockhill Circuit. There was 1,000 girls involved in this competition in 2021 over to 2022. And there was about 35 different countries involved. There was an assessment day in North America. There was one in India. So of course UK based. So there was quite a lot at Bedford as well and stuff like that in England. So luckily I had one in Knockhill because I don't think I would travel that way down to England and something I just was like, I don't know if I'm going to get there. There's a lot of girls with a lot of experience and who really did deserve that seat as well. And I was a girl that had never gone on track before. I'd never sat in a race seat in my entire life. So it was a lot to take.
Not even on a track day or anything like that.
Nothing. I never karted professionally. Never. I think I karted maybe twice indoors when I went to like a birthday party when I was younger, or I went with family or friends for like something fun to do. But I'd never was into motorsport, never went on track before. So I went to my assessment day, which of course, as most of you know, there's a lot to do with outside of the car as well. So we were tested on media, we were tested on fitness, we were tested on karting, and of course the main kind of aspect was how we drove on track. So they gave us a good kind of platform on kind of studying race lines, like race lines and even race flags was a new thing for me. I didn't really understand much of it. So I studied it and I kind of got the aspect, and we had 5 laps, literally 5 laps to prove ourselves around Knockhill circuit. So we got a guided lap and then we're kind of left to just prove our smoothness or our natural ability in the car.
Just thinking that is a short lap as well. I mean, everyone who's been to Knockhill, or even who hasn't been to Knockhill, who's seen it on the telly, loves it. It's I mean, I've been twice, once for racing and once for another reason. But I'll come to that in a minute. But it's fabulous, isn't it? And fantastic scenery, and you can see the Forth Bridge from it, and it's a superb circuit, isn't it? It's terrific.
Yeah. It's one of the funnest. I do a little bit of coaching with Knockhill now, so I get the privilege of still going around that circuit, and I hope to race it one day in a Porsche, because I know Career Cup GB go there quite a lot, and touring cars and stuff, so that's definitely a target because it's pretty cool when you watch racing there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not just saying that because Duncan Vincent's tuned in, who's based at Knockhill. He's a commentator and does a lot of social media. Evening, Duncan. Good to have you on. I mean it, I promise. No, it is a fabulous, fabulous place. And we had Joe Tanner on here, who's on like Renat Design, does all the helmets as well.
Yep.
So there's a lot going on in a relatively small place. Just to touch on it, actually, I was up. It was the weekend before British Touring Car Championship Media Day in 2022. And I popped in. I happened to be up in Scotland, and I popped in to see Duncan, and he was busy. So I stood and froze myself in the pits as all the bikes went past. It was raining. It was cold.
It's always cold.
But it was brilliant. It was absolutely superb. Very atmospheric place. There's that saying, isn't there? Was it if you can't see the top of the hill, it's raining, and if you can, it's about to rain.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Very true.
Yeah. But no. So I mean, when all that was going on, even with the driving stuff, learning the flags, the lines, all the stuff outside the car, the media thing, I think a lot of people might have kind of maybe like balked at that and gone, "Oh God, there's a lot going on here. It's a lot to take in." From what I've sort of seen of you, you don't seem like that kind of person. You seem like the kind of person who would just be a sponge to it all and just keen to just take it all in. And I guess that was the case.
Yeah, certainly. And I think that's one thing I do preach about is I've always found myself to have a very good head on my shoulders. I'm a very calm person. And like you said, I can take in a lot of information, and I'm very quick at learning. And of course, throughout this season, that has really shown through. It's really provided for me because I've been put in a lot of situations where I definitely do not have the experience for it. And I've gone in it and I've done my best and I've done a really good job, and I'm really proud of where I've got so far. But it was grueling, and I think I took that assessment day more as like, okay, I'm going to meet some girls that are like-minded girls. There's about 125 girls that day at Knockhill, which was amazing to see the circuit involved with that as well, and to actually meet some girls in Scotland that are interested in that stuff from a very small croft on the west coast of Scotland. To be opened up to even that kind of branch of people was really nice. And honestly, I forgot about it. After the assessment day, I had a lot of fun. And then I forgot about it. I didn't think anything more. And it was December of 2021 that I actually got an email from them saying, "Hey, we've selected you as one of the final 75 girls to come do the finals. We think you have something." And that's from 1,000 girls. And from them, I was like, oh, okay, maybe there's something here that I could really work on or see if I have a hidden potential or raw talent.
Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, from that number of people, someone who, as you say, who hadn't done any racing in the past.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to touch on that first one was it was the Vauxhall, was it the E Corsa, the electric Corsa thing. I'm just wondering what that was like to drive. I mean, I've only driven one electric car for a little while, but I can't imagine thumping around a circuit in one. I mean, what were you thinking when you're driving that? And I mean, it must have been pretty cool.
Yeah, it was, for one, it was very surreal to even go on a circuit, no matter what I was in. It was quite good to have something that you could handle in some forms. It wasn't out of the girls' reach. I guess it was really good for me because I could just drive, yes, to the limit of the car very easily, but as well show my smoothness, show my braking, my throttle application, and essentially show my very good foundation for them to mold me into something that could be really successful in the future.
Yeah, and which is obviously what they saw when you were there.
Goodness.
And I said, right, this is one of them. We can do something with this. And I guess, and there was a final round in the UK. Did you go to? Was it Croft? It was Croft and PR International, wasn't it? Were the two?
So with the finals, they were very grueling actually. A lot of things just popped out of the air. It was a lot to take in, but the first kind of stage of the finals, so we had the 75 girls. So we had girls that were coming from India, we had girls that were from North America. One of my best friends actually now, she is still in Canada, which is really annoying, but I met her through this process and I met so many girls.
Would that be Erica Hoffman, perchance?
That is Erica Hoffman.
I've been in touch with Erica. And I just sent her a message today saying I forgot you were teammates. So she might hop on. We'll see. Anyway.
Yeah, no, definitely speak to her. She's got some amazing stories, and she is one of my best friends now. And honestly, so grateful for that girl. And I was obviously in the McLaren last year with her too. But we started off at PFI International, so this was baseline karting. We had some girls that had raced kind of, like European champion kind of level karting that had gone to Le Mans kind of thing. So I knew, yes, there was a good competition, but I also knew there was a lot of girls I could learn from in this opportunity. And I knew I was in a situation where I'd literally never sat in a race car before. I'd literally never been on track. This was my first time outdoor karting since my assessment day. And we were on slicks, and it was, of course, very wet at PFI because it's the UK. So that was another thing I had to get my head around and again, adapt very quickly to being on slicks on a very wet track with standing water, me not even understanding how slicks really work, no wonder karting, how to brake, all that fun stuff, how to rotate the car. So I went out, I qualified P10, which was pretty bad, but the thing was I got up to P3, and by then 1, 2 and 3, sorry, I was P4. 1, 2 and 3 were kind of away with the pack. They were battling them own self. So I made a really good gap up, and I think they really noticed the progression I was doing. So day 2, we done more teamwork, like endurance stuff. So we had an endurance race where we were putting to a team, and we were kind of analysing how we work with a team. So of course in GT racing, and one thing I love about GT racing is working as a team as well. So they were looking at how we done that. So we were allocated the leaders, and we also had eyes on there. They were doing a lot of simulator stuff with us as well, and data stuff, and seeing our written knowledge about motorsports and how much we'd been taken in. So after that, it was, honestly, I could not tell you that day if I got through or not. Like I was put through as a wild card in one of the last races because of I guess my progression, which was really good to have that opportunity with the girls that had much more experience than me, and to be behind them and follow them and see their lines. I learned a lot from them. So that evening, I remember it was the weirdest day of my life. We were all 75 of us were sat in this room. I'm not even joking. All sat in this room, and the organisers were stood at the front, and they kind of said to us, right, we're going to say the names, the 11, I think it was 11 or 15 girls. I can't remember, 15 girls, I think it was, that was put through to the next stage at Croft. And that's a big chunk of the girls as well.
Yeah.
So what happened was they just took us by, they took us by alphabetical order, and obviously Sloss is quite on the list. And I remember they shouted my name, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to Croft.
Outwardly, were you like, oh, okay, good. Inside, were you just bouncing? Were you just like...
Yeah, literally, it was the weirdest thing. There was a part of me was like, there's some really good girls here that deserve this. And I understand if I didn't get through, it's probably because of my experience. But as well, I showed so much potential in what I could be molded into. So they gave me the opportunity, which I'm very grateful for. And there's a few other girls that hadn't had much experience either. So we got put through to Croft the next day. So literally that night we went up to Croft Circuit.
Oh, right. It was the following day.
Yeah, literally next day.
Wow.
Yeah, it was quite sudden. So no time to prepare.
No, just
we got, yeah, it was bam, bam, bam. So it's whoever could really adapt and handle the pressure the best. So what happened at Croft was there was a Jaguar Project 8 race car there. So as we all know, it's a supercharged V8. It's a big car to handle. It's a heavy car, and it's left-hand drive as well. And I'd never driven left-hand drive in my life. So proper race car.
And you've made that jump to that size of car, left-hand. Oh wow! And a new circuit.
Yeah, I'd never driven Croft. No, never driven Croft in the simulator. So I was like, oh my goodness, this is a lot. But I had belief in myself, and it was weird. The minute I got into that car, because the thing pulls a lot. It's got a big engine, it's got a lot of horsepower, and it was kind of wet to dry track. So some standing water in the morning. So we weren't running slicks. It was like semi-slicks. So it wasn't too bad. But with that kind of car, you just don't know. You don't know the limit. So what we done was we had one passenger lap. We had a few laps in the morning in the courses just to kind of get used to the track a little bit more. And then we had one passenger lap in the Jaguar, where it was like a sighting lap almost to kind of feel how they were driving the car. And then we were sent out by ourselves in this car, totally by ourselves. We had one out lap, and then we had a fast lap, and it was all based on time. So we had one lap to get to the next stage of the competition. So
wow. After what you've been through that, and it came down to a lap after a handful of minutes in the car. My goodness.
Yeah. So it was there was one rule was if you spun out, you kind of that would be kind of it, which was fair enough. So there was a realization of like you could push or you just keep it really safe. But I was like, if you want to be a racing driver, you've got to go out there and give it your best shot. So I went out. I was one of the first girls, so it was much wetter in the morning. And I just adapt as much as I can from that one out lap, first time in the car. Never driven something that powerful before, I don't think, in my life. And I sent a good lap in for my experience. My first time putting a quick lap in, I guess, in a race car. First time sitting in a race car. Took her back in, and I managed to secure the next stage in Sweden.
Wow. I mean, obviously, they were posting times, I guess, so you could see where you were. And
yeah.
I mean, was there a time where you were thinking, all right, there's 6 left to go? Am I in the bottom 4? Where am I? Were you trying to figure out whether you were going to make it or not? And when did you kind of realize that you had done? Was it with a couple of...
Yeah, honestly, it was one of the most grueling days of my life. I remember that at that stage when I got through the Crofts and I was in the final 15, I was like, wow, I must have something that I've just never witnessed in myself. And I think that's when I kind of got the fire to be like, I could actually be a racing driver. I could be driving that McLaren next season. You know, this could be me.
Right. That's when you started to think.
Yeah, that's when it all started to flex. So I think that day was very grueling for me because I was sitting there and I was the second girl to go. And I had about, another 10 or 12, 13 girls to go. And I was like, okay, let's see how this goes. And they've got a lot of experience. So I was like, oh, I got through.
Kind of one of those things, I guess you would have rather be in the last 2 or 3, just so there's a...
just put it in. Yeah.
Rather than the awful wait.
Yeah, it was awful.
But. God, but when you got through and you think, right, you're going to Sweden. Was it 10 or 12 went to Sweden? I can't remember.
11 of us went to Sweden. So
11. 10 or 12.
That was you're in between. But that was a really cool experience. I think one thing I loved about that experience was obviously we had independent judges. So we had one of my judges was actually one of Colin McRae's co-drivers at one point as well, which was pretty cool with the Scottish heritage, getting on the ice with him. He taught me a lot. He did. He taught me a lot.
It wasn't Derek Ringer, was it?
I actually can't remember his name.
That would have been cool. That would have been very cool.
Thoudenberg.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we went out that day, and it was extremely, this is the last stage of the finals. We've got a TV crew there. We've actually got DTO, Danny from DTO. She came along to watch it as well, because obviously we ran with DTO Motorsports with the McLarens. So there was a lot going on. There was, it was very intense, and it was very cool to go to Sweden. So what happened was, we kind of had the morning for the girls that had not been on the ice to give it a fair opportunity for anyone that had never experienced kind of driving on the ice. It's very different. The one thing I loved though was ice driving, as we know, shows a lot of natural car control. It shows a lot of natural ability. It's not so much about to do with speed. It's about balance of the throttle, the power, everything, the weight of the car. So that's when I really, really shone through with what I kind of understood and how I felt with the car. Right. So we had an individual assessment where we had one of the ice driving instructors, or I had one of Colin McRae's co-drivers. These guys are really experienced. He sat beside us and they just didn't say anything, and they gave us a track and we had to just drive around it, and they just analysed every single part of our driving and our car control. So pretty grueling to be sitting there just having to show your best. Wow. And then
that must have been like on your driving test, when the instructor just sits there, not just looking at you, not saying a thing, just putting you off, just there. It must have been honestly, like that magnified 1,000 times. I can't. Wow, that's incredible.
I had to try block him out quite a lot, but again, I don't know if it was just because I took to the situations with such a chilled out head. I was just like, well, if not, this has been a cool experience. And I'll just do whatever I can. And then in the afternoon, we had to do almost like a time trial. So I think we had 1 or 2 laps to do a fast lap around the circuit that they made. And that was all kind of based on times as well. And then we were put through a kind of grueling interview process as well, where we were kind of interrogated a little bit. Which was quite cool as well, I guess. And then that next morning in Sweden, so that night I went to sleep, I was like, I don't know how I've done. And then that morning in Sweden, we were kind of separated out, and we were pulled into a room individually, not knowing how the last girl done, and we're put in front of a camera, and the CEO and Mia Fluet, one of a McLaren driver, sat there and said, you've got through or you've not gone through.
Wow.
So
so that actually I was going to ask if Mia was involved, because she was on here 2 or 3 months ago came on for a chat, and I didn't realize she was part of that, otherwise I'd have asked her about it. And whether she was kind to people, but yeah, she's amazing, isn't she? She's like an engineering background to racing is very cool.
And that stage as well of me being so fresh to motorsports, I think it was quite cool just to, even Danny from DCO and especially Mia, just like actually speaking to Mia or Danny and just seeing females in motorsports and seeing what they're doing and seeing what their passions were or ambitions were. Like, it was really encouraging to have them involved in the process.
Yeah, fantastic. And I've got to ask, when you were sitting there in front of your camera in the room with whoever it was, what did they say? How did they kind of tell you that you had been successful? And more importantly, how did you react?
Honestly, I remember it plain as day. So I remember they sat me down and we're all kind of put in a back room and we're called one by one. And I think I was maybe the 4th last girl to go through. So I was a bit like, oh, I don't know if some of the girls had already taken the places, or I had no idea how it would go. So we had to walk through and I was very nervous, and I sat down. It was like a panel almost of judges across from me. And, they kind of just done a rundown of how I'd done ice driving, the instructor's feedback, anything I need to improve on, which was really helpful. So it kind of started off with, oh God, I don't think I've actually got in, because they've gone more into like, this is what you could have improved on, but this was really good. And it was kind of like back and forth. And I was like, what is this? Like, am I through? I could not tell you if I was through from that moment.
But your mind was going both ways. And
yeah, I was like, oh God, I honestly have no idea my capabilities. And they were the only people that kind of could see that, because they had so much experience in racing and driving cars. So, they continued, and he just said, but what you've done really well and what we really liked about you was X, Y, and Z, and that's why we've chosen you to be one of the McLaren main drivers. So I was like, okay. And I burst into tears. I think it's the only time I've done that over something like that. And
I'm not
that's my
surprised.
life changed like that.
That's incredible. I mean, given from the start of the process to sort of seeing the advert to that was only a few weeks, wasn't it? It wasn't really that long a time, was it?
No, it was a very short period of time. I think I can't remember the space of time where it was from Croft to Sweden, but it was in like 2 weeks this all kind of happened. So it was, yeah, my parents didn't really have an idea what I was doing, to be honest, until I told them what I was doing afterwards.
By the way, I'm going to be doing this.
Yeah.
I mean, what do they think? I mean, obviously you said that you've quad bikes and horses and all that kind of a thing. So they're kind of okay with you being, out there doing stuff like this.
Hmm.
How did they react when you said, "Oh, I'm going to be driving McLaren in the GT Cup next year"?
Honestly, I remember taking my dad to the assessment day, just to give me a bit of company, really. And he was like, "Okay, she's doing this. This is a bit out of the blue. Didn't realize she'd be on track." But I think he just saw it as like, "Oh, she wants to have a bit of fun. She's at that age now. She wants to go adventure and do that stuff." So when they followed it on Facebook, and I think they announced it when we were on the plane back home. So when I landed, everyone was like, "Oh my God, what the hell is going on?" And I know they have belief in me, but I don't think they knew my capability, and they didn't really know if I was able to win something like that without ever sitting in a race seat and being one of the most inexperienced girls in that whole assessment. So I think it really proved something not only to myself but my family. I mean, it's my dad's absolute dream. He loves it.
I
He
bet
loves
you think,
it.
yes.
Yeah.
Um, but it also proves, I mean, obviously, we're going to come on to the money and sponsorship and things because that's a huge part of it. But it shows that you can get somewhere just with the ability that you have in motorsport, even if you don't know you've got it to begin with. Because everyone says, "Oh, you need money to go racing," and obviously, money's helpful, but well, it's very, very helpful. But
Yeah.
it shows that if there's an opportunity that gets presented, like Formula Woman, and you think, "Oh, I'm just going to go for it, do what I can do," it turns out you can do more than you think, perhaps.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the, like you said, money helps a lot, and this is a very financial supported. It's very expensive, this sport, and I don't sadly come from money. And with something that I've been presented and had such a good platform to elevate myself off of, I've been extremely grateful for the people who have helped me or have just given me the opportunity, because I feel like I am a great asset to many things, and my story's super unique. But it's an extremely hard sport. But I feel as well, one thing I've always said is, working at opportunities here. But if I can prove myself on track with the data and the way I drive my car, and show my potential and potentially be the next driver to be molded into something great, that really means a lot to me. And I know what I do on track says a lot. So I feel like the natural kind of talent and ability really does help with things like that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And what is great is that you said it yourself, so you see yourself as an asset. It's that self sort of belief, self-worth, self-confidence to push yourself. Because the amount of people that have come on here and spoken and said, "Oh, if I was a bit more pushy, I could have got a sponsorship for this and I could have gone to do that."
Yeah.
And maybe pushy is the wrong word, but just having that self-confidence to put yourself out there and say, "Look, if I'm going to do this, I've got to prove it and I can do it." And you can show people
Exactly.
and have that belief that you can do it, which is
Yeah.
fantastic. Which is great.
No,
That,
I do agree, and I think as well in racing, you've probably talked to a lot of racing drivers. The mind is like a huge thing in this
absolutely.
sport. It's such a huge conversation. It's probably one of the most difficult things I've had to get my head around when I've jumped into, like, from a McLaren GT4 to an Evo 2 Lamborghini, and kind of adjusting to that and believing, you know what, Jodie, you might not know because you've not proved it to yourself yet, but you actually can learn and you can do that, drive this car. And I've not once sat in a car. And I think this is something that really said something to me with this sport. And it's almost like I found a purpose. Was every time I sit in the car, of course I love it, I enjoy every second, but I don't ever feel scared, and I don't ever feel like I'm out of my depth, which is something weird to say because I should feel like that in some forms.
Yeah, sure. And I think a lot of people would feel that. But I just think that's the best mindset, with whatever it is, whatever car it is, whatever situation, you think, I can do this. You know,
Yeah.
there's no reason why I can't. That's the thing. And the amount of drivers that I've spoken to, especially the younger ones, guys in the mini challenge and things like that, who have got mental coaches, mind coaches, just to
Yeah.
change the way they think, because that's half the battle.
Certainly.
Just seen seen that where are we? Indira Flack. She said that you are very Louise Aitken Walker. Now, people of a certain age won't know who she is. I'm old, so I know her. But she was, yeah, she's just like this ridiculously determined woman. She did touring car racing, rallying, ended up in a lake upside down in Portugal. Sorry, Louise. But she was one of those. She had the same kind of mindset. He goes, I want to do this, and I can
Yeah.
do it. And it's a Scottish thing, isn't it?
It must be. It must be in our blood, honestly. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
We never give up.
Absolutely. Just quickly, you had a lot of positive stuff, lots of good news, lots of good motorsport stuff right straight off the bat. Did you ever kind of find yourself thinking, going to get some bad news in a minute, something's going to go wrong? Did you have to kind of steel yourself mentally for thinking that it can't be all good news, surely? Because again,
Yeah.
that's the mental approach, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I think again, like you said, I've been extremely lucky with the foundation. I've been able to supply for myself and with the aid of people, and for people to just give me a chance in some forms as well. And I think that is a huge point in motorsports when you're provided with the tools or you invest into someone that is showing potential. It's really magical when they're giving that kind of asset and what they can really do with it. But it's hard. It really is hard, and yeah, there's a lot to think about.
Absolutely. Just sort of, okay, we've got to get onto the racing. We've got to get onto the racing and the driving fast and all the good stuff that we love. Especially us people looking in from the outside. Fast cars and noisy things, we love it. Obviously, you've got in with GTO. Excuse me, you got in with a GTO Motorsport. Excuse me, in the McLaren as one of these, as one of the four drivers.
Yeah.
What was the first sort of thing? Where did you first sort of go? Was it for a test or for a race? And what did you think when you got in the car, thinking this is my race car? It must have been cool.
Yeah, it was. So we started, DTO were amazing, and we started actually off in a kind of development kind of program, which certainly I needed. Never sat in a McLaren before. No wonder a proper race car on slick tires. On a really competitive pro-am grid. So they had a lot of work to do for sure. So most of the girls had a lot of experience, quite a lot of experience. Erica is probably the other one that's had one of the least experiences as well, and she was partnered with me. So what kind of happened was we were started in the kind of one series that they have. So they have quite a lot of cars to do with like track experience days. So we were put in that one and the BMW M2, which I loved that car. It was really fun to drive, and it was a good stepping block to the McLaren experience car that they have. So we didn't actually start training in our real race car until I think it was a couple of weeks before our first race. So it was quite different actually to go from a McLaren GT4 that was maybe set up more chilled out, more or less racy for kind of corporate days with a passenger seat in it, to go from a proper setup McLaren GT4 with no passenger seat. You've got comms, you're in the car for the first time by yourself. And that, I think that was one of the memories I caught by it. And this was only 2022 that I was in this car, which is weird to say. But I remember the first time they were like, we need to send the girls out by themselves because they're going to be racing by themselves. They're not going to have a passenger, are they? So I remember it was the first time that they sent me out with my comms. With no one beside me in my own race car, number 64. I called her Queenie. She was quite cool. And it was a surreal experience to be out there by yourself. I think that's when it hit me. I was like, oh, okay. I'm a racing driver now.
Like I'm doing this. That it must have felt, as you say, it must have been very surreal, but it must have felt very cool. I mean, just thinking it's just, okay, you've got comms, but it's just you in the car for the first time.
Yeah, and I think as well, like, yeah, you've got someone beside you and they can kind of correct you, and so grateful for everyone that's coached and helped me throughout that McLaren experience. But when you're in it by yourself, it's almost like you're in control of that machinery. You need to understand how the car's reacting, you need to understand the tires, and that's when it kind of all started to maybe help me progress a little bit more, because I was in control of my own pace. I was in control of where the car went, how I progressed, and essentially feeding back information to my engineers as well. That was a huge curve to learn too.
I guess that must have been a huge thing because you're a new racer, and obviously that comes with experience. But obviously you had to, you did it straight off the bat, and which is very cool. And I mean, your first race, I mean, with all the other cars around you and everything,
Oh
I mean,
God. Yeah.
I think that answers the question.
Fun.
I would have been thinking, what am I doing? Oh my Lord. When I guess like the red light went out and you were off. I mean, sorry, did you start that first race, or was it a changeover, or was it?
I started the first race. So in GC Cup we do a sprint race, and then we do the endurance race after.
Okay.
So I was one of the first girls to go out. And yeah, I couldn't even explain what it felt like. It was a very odd feeling. No wonder doing qualifying for the first time ever in my life. Never done a qualifying in my life. But that was my first race. I raced some karts and PFI, but as in an official race, that was my first race. Was in that McLaren on the Pro-Am grid, and for a second I was like, damn, like no other person would give me this opportunity. Like, who would put this inexperienced girl in a McLaren just to kind of show what she's got? And maybe it was a bit into the deep end in some forms, but I think I was a driver that really propelled from that kind of pressure and being chucked in the deep end, and kind of having to struggle my way up and be like, right, I need to keep up, I need to learn fast here, I need to adapt fast here, I need to learn more. And that's where the hunger really came from, and my abilities to learn fast really came from. And I remember coming up to the first corner at Snetterton Circuit, and we all know what the first corner is like at Snetterton Circuit, and knowing to the second corner as well, coming down that hill. It's a really sharp right hand hairpin, yeah, it's a really fast turn one. And I remember going in there and just checking my mirrors and making sure I knew what was going on around me. It was a really competitive class in GTH. I think we had almost 15 cars in our class at Silverstone. So it was really cool to be following other experienced drivers, and to just be learning as much as we can, really.
Wow. What a circuit to be on as well. As you say, the first two corners couldn't be any more different than they are. That's proper at the deep end. But I mean, I'm just impressed that you kind of put yourself in a position where you knew where everyone was. I mean, from driving down the motorway, some people don't do that.
Yeah, I know. I don't know how to explain it really. It's like almost like when I was put in that situation, yes, you get adrenaline. Yes, you get excited. You're about to just race in a McLaren. There's a Lamborghini in front of you. There's all these mega expensive cars. But I think I really just took it as I don't know. I just sat in that car and I was just like, I know who's behind me. I know what I need to do. It probably wasn't the best executed race I've ever done in my life, my first ever race, but for my first, it was a pretty good effort. And I'm really proud of how I kind of analysed and took in every aspect of that 25-minute sprint race.
See, that's the thing as well, isn't it? I mean, people just look at the result and say you finished wherever you finished. But there's so much more that goes on during a race. Even in the Grand Prix, some people say, oh, so-and-so was dropping back, so-and-so had that problem, this problem. There's so much stuff that us on the outside don't know about. And that was obviously what you were dealing with in the car. And as you say, how you analysed what was going on, which is a huge part of it, as we know. And you actually took the team's best result of the season, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. And that was lovely at Silverstone. And Silverstone was it was the third round that we done, and Silverstone was one of them circuits where we're racing the GP, and it was like, F1's raced there, all these amazing people have raced there, and it's, Maggots and Beckett's, we've heard about this hundreds of times. It's one of the most complex sections in the whole of Europe, I would say. It's pretty cool to race, and we didn't have much seat time around Silverstone, more sim time. We didn't actually really get a prior test day. We only had the additional championship test day, so didn't have much test time at all. But I was willing to give my best shot at Silverstone. I know it's a circuit, extremely flowing, but it challenges you and it's very complex. And as a brand new driver, just understanding rotation of the car, overheating of tires, it rained in the first race. First time I've ever raced in the rain on rain tires. So a lot to take in, but I'm really proud of that. The highest finish the team's ever taken home, being the least experienced girl on the team. I think it shows that I learned a lot. Of course, a lot of things happen in a race, and I wish I could do even better. But I progressed, and it's shown through in my results.
Yeah, so it feels like you've been thrown at the deep end with everything, with the Snetterton and the rain at Silverstone.
Motorsports for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you didn't get a lot of time to learn it all.
Yeah.
And just on the Maggots and Beckett's and Chapel section, I'm old enough to remember when it was a left and then a drag to a fairly sharp right and then left again.
Yeah.
And then they changed it. I was like, what? No. And then they changed it to what it is now, and I was like, yeah, okay, yes, you can do that. It's a fabulous bit of circuit, isn't it?
It's phenomenal, and I had the joy again to race it in the Porsche GT3 991, and I mean GT4 is a little bit more chilled out going through Maggots and Beckett's, but in a GT3 much more aerodynamics, you're just absolutely flat almost through the first section. I mean F1 cars are almost flat through Maggots and Beckett's, so it's crazy to think about it, but it's such a challenging complex. And with Silverstone, if you mess up the start of one complex, it really affects your whole sector. So it really put my mind in a frame of piecing a perfect lap together. Obviously, there's no such thing as a perfect lap, but it put the pressure on me to like take things from every single bit of the corners, because there's a lot of corners in that circuit, and just do my best throughout the race and just progress as much as I could.
Yeah, fantastic. That's very cool. That's good insight into the lap, because obviously people just think you get there and you drive it, but as you say, if you get one part wrong, it knocks on.
Messes up the whole other sector. Yeah.
Just to move on from the McLarens, you touched on it. You got to go and race Porsche. Was it the 991? Was it you raced with? Was it race drive? Was it that one, or was it?
Yeah. Race drive.
How did that come about?
So yeah, this is another thing. It just came out of nowhere, really, to be honest. So with the McLarens, we were meant to finish the season, and because of kind of financial things or whatever else, we got pulled out the last two rounds, which was really sad, because I'd love to complete the season with DCO and the whole of the team, and of course my teammate Erica and the rest of the girls. So I was put in a situation potentially that I didn't have a seat for the next year. It was coming quite early on into the next year now, and it was a bit of a funny situation where potentially I'd have to create my own funding to get to my next stage. And I was in a very unique situation where my only experience was 3 rounds in a McLaren GT4. So kind of having that resume is phenomenal to race that car. Amazing opportunity with that grid. But as well, I didn't really have much experience at all in karting. I did not really have much of a resume. So deciding which path I go down next was really confusing for me. And I remember I actually didn't even have my international license at this point. That's how inexperienced I was. So I was like, right, I'm going to get my signatures. So if I can get in a Fiesta, if I can get in a Porsche Boxster, something that's like low-level races, I'm going to build my experience, my racecraft, and also I can get my international license signatures to potentially open up more opportunities. So I went and raced a Fiesta ST for a few rounds, done really well in that, and then got my international license signatures. I done a race in a Porsche Boxster with Super Tune. I actually won the race at Donington, which was really encouraging. First time racing at Donington. And I love Porsches anyway, so first time racing a Porsche, I was like, wow. So from then, I think someone kind of recognized me from the paddock and just being a little bit more involved with the lower level club races. And there was a team called Race Drive who are also involved with the last team I raced with the Fiestas and the Boxster. And he actually used to run with that team because he was the championship winner, the guy that owned the Boxster. So it was more of a thing of like, where's this girl come from? What's her potential? And they had the 991.1 available. No one was racing it that season. And they kind of just said to me, do you want to come test it? See, we can see your potential. You can kind of go in a GT3. And I know the 991 is one of the most trickiest cars to get your head around, certainly. And most people say if you can get your head around that or drive that well, you can drive anything. So I was quite daunted to jump into that thing because I know it's much more raw. You know, the engine's all the way in the back. I'm used to more mid-engined. I don't have much experience. So I was like, okay, cool, of course, I'll take any opportunity to say yes to everything. I went there. I had a few laps with a passenger in there, and he said, yeah, she's all right, she's ready to go. So I had a day of just playing about with that, and I fell in love with the car. I've always been obsessed with Porsche, and always actually been obsessed with, when I was a little girl, I used to watch the Cars movie, and Sally the Porsche was like my OG. She was my favorite character. So to get in a blue Porsche, I was like, yeah.
I absolutely love cars. I shouldn't say that, but so good. Brilliant.
So,
yeah, amazing. Sally with her pinstripe tattoo. Yeah, anyway,
yeah.
let's not get into cars. Goodness me, it's a whole different tangent. But so you've done your test, and they said you're good to go and everything. Was it Alton Park they put you in for your first race?
Yeah.
And that went well as well. In at the deep end again.
Yeah, so Alton, as you know, Alton's a very exciting circuit in the UK. Very challenging. I raced that for the round 2 of the GT Cup, was in the McLaren at Alton, so I had a bit of experience there in a GT4. So I was coming into the season quite late with the Porsche, so we had Alton Park, Silverstone, and then we had Brands Hatch for the final round. So yeah, Alton was the first round, and honestly, I remember that it wasn't even that long ago now I'm saying this, but I went on Alton Park, and it was quite a greasy to wet ratio track. So a condition I hadn't really raced in before, and I went down a brand new car. And I remember coming down the back straight after Druids, and I was like, this thing shifts, and it was jumping all over the bumps. It felt light, and I was like, this feels like a proper GT car. I was like, wow, this isn't just insane. We know what the cup cars are like. They're absolutely mental. So I was like, okay, this is going to be a big learning curve. So testing went well. It was a gradual progress, and obviously a lot of a car to kind of get my head around from like a GT4 kind of level. And then qualifying went okay. It went pretty good, to be fair. But in the race, I remember I had one kind of aim, and that was to keep the car in front, who was Archie Hamilton, and he's raced Le Mans and stuff. Yeah. He's a very experienced driver in the cup car as well, especially the 991. And I was like, if I can keep him in sight, I'm doing well. I was like, follow his lines, keep on his bum a little bit. He was in the second generation. I was in the first. So I had a little, I think 50 horsepower or less, but I was like, I'm going to keep on him. And I learned a lot from just following him and getting in that race and being put in that situation where it's like, Jodie, right, wake up, you've got to keep on him. It progressed so much as a driver, and I got a really good position home, which was nice.
Yeah. Sorry, can I just say, I love hearing a racing driver describe a car as mental. Brilliant. It's just, that's how it should be. Yeah. Not, oh, it's technically so and so. No, it's mental. Brilliant. Yeah, love it. But you said you took home a good result. I mean, was it 2 races that weekend? And you were on
So we're meant to have 2 races, but there was quite a bad crash in GT Cup, so we only got the 1 race. So P2 finish, which was quite nice. Yeah. That was unexpected, to be fair.
P2, first race, greasy circuit, mental car, and on the podium.
Yeah,
that's very, very cool.
And it was nice.
Yeah, and I guess more than anything else, that's a confidence boost, especially with what you learned, as you said, following Archie Hamilton. And then you went to. Sorry, it was Silverstone, wasn't it? There's another podium there, and you started both races on the front row. I think I'm correct in saying.
So we had quite a big grid. We had a 52 car grid. So we had about 7, I think, cup cars in our kind of class. So it was really nice to actually see the 991s all out there again, because it's mainly 992s you see these days. So yeah, front row each race, which was something I'd never done. I was like, okay, cool. And it's a standing start, was something I'd never done before either, because ultimately done a rolling start, and obviously GTs we normally do rolling in McLarens. So first time we done a standing start, I was like, oh, okay then. That went well, and I think I got P3 finish through there, so that was really good and really encouraging as well.
Yeah, actually, I saw there was a like mechanical retirement, which is obviously disappointing. But that's out of your control. So these things happen. And then was it Brands again? Was there another podium? I think another podium finish at Brands.
Yeah. So Brands Hatch. Yeah, Brands Hatch was one of the biggest learning curves for me. It was only around the Indy circuit, but again, Indy circuit creates some really exciting racing because we're all quite close together. It's a short lap. I'd never raced at Brands before. This is my first ever time racing on the Indy kind of Brands circuit. I tested there once before with DTO and the McLaren, but apart from that, I'd never been to Brands. It's down in London. Nothing was really on my calendar with the McLaren, and we just missed out on that round. So it was almost like I'd never raced in a circuit before. I was like, this is very new for me. And obviously turn one, it's quite an exciting little bit of turn one. And just getting used to,
we love it.
Yeah, a lot of action happens there. So
Yeah.
just building my confidence with that track. You've got to have a lot of confidence into turn one, and just feeling the balance of the car. Braking in a 991 is extremely important, and in Porsches in general. And throttle application, steering input, everything, just being more with the car. And that's something I really worked with at Brands. Sadly, I couldn't afford to put a fresh slick pair of tires on my car, so I was on slow tires, but as well, I took it as such a progression around that circuit, and I took it as racecraft. We had a strong grid again. We had about 5 or 6 cup cars, and there are a few 992s as well, which was really encouraging. So yeah, we got a P3 finish and then 2 P4s, which was really nice.
I mean, that's a pretty impressive set of results, given it's your first real time in the car, first time racing on these circuits. And what I'm sort of loving is that you're just taking so much away from every race, regardless of the result, even the DNF race and things like that. You're just taking so much away from it. How to, and I guess thinking about how you could use it on other circuits that you've driven, and maybe applying new things and things like that, which is amazing, because I guess not everyone has that brain. I think we can watch the mini challenge and on the touring car package, and it seems like no one's learning at some corners. It's just the same thing every time. It's just barreling into each other or locking up or doing something.
That's fun racing.
and I'm not saying it's easy at all, but you think you've done that 4 laps in a row, mate. Come on. Whereas you seem to just be learning every lap, which is the best approach.
Yeah, I certainly don't like making the same mistake, and I think for me, every single situation I know that I'm going to go into, hopefully there is a point I don't come into a situation like this, but I know I'm probably the least experienced. I know I've never done this before. It's not my situation that is super out of my brainwave. So I know that I need to take as much as I can from that session, because I know the next thing I go into is going to be totally different, and hopefully I can take something that I learned from the 991, which I've learned so much from that car, it's unreal. I can take it and replicate it into the 992, and hopefully that can let me progress a little bit further, a little bit more. And I know that I'm always going to be in the back step when it comes to, if it's shootouts or test days or proving myself, I'm always going to be in the back step with the very, very small amount of experience I have. But I just want people to see the driver that I can be molded into, and with the right tools, essentially.
Yeah, fantastic. Love that. Just want to touch on the 992 very quickly, but before I do, we've got Mark Wagstaff has tuned in. He runs BTCC Blueprints, all the mugs and stickers and all the key rings and all that cool stuff. I've got some of this stuff over here, and he's just said, "Oh, Porsche, note to self." I reckon I think he might be keeping an eye on you, just seeing if you end up in the Carrera
That's
Cup.
exciting.
Yeah, so that's cool. So yeah, check out BTCC Blueprints, folks. Very, very cool stuff. And he's also said, yeah, you're from Oban, which is lovely, but it says, have you ever been to Milton Keynes?
Milton Keynes, oh my
which
goodness.
he has put a laughing emoji there.
Yeah, I think he must be joking about that one.
I've been to Milton Keynes. It's got the cows, the concrete cows.
I just don't understand Milton Keynes.
It's just roundabouts and everything, but there's one bit, and there's just 5 or 6 cows painted, just concrete ones painted in the field. Very odd. Anyway, nothing against Milton Keynes, folks. It's fine. It's just compared to the Scottish Highlands. One place does postcards, one doesn't. I'll put it that way. Right. Just digress. But yeah, thank you, Mark, for tuning in. 992. Now, I'm very jealous of you, because you got to drive a Porsche around Sebring. And Sebring's on my bucket list to visit. It's like Indy 500, Daytona 500, Bathurst, Sebring. And you had, was it Jan Magnussen taking you around and showing you some stuff? That must have been fantastic, having him. to give you some
Yeah.
pointers?
Honestly, I only recently got back from America, so this happened on the 4th and the 5th of December, so very recent. Super surreal experience, and I mean, we've talked quite largely about my story, and it's not got much into it, to be honest. And I met a team called MDK, and they're amazing. They are really amazing people. Mark and Meg, Mark being the team owner, Meg being the CEO. They're like a power couple. Honestly, they inspire me every single day with the stuff they achieve and the stuff the team does as well. So they invited me out to Sebring for a show and a test day, in a 992. So I actually recently tested a 992 for a very short period of time. I think it was like 25 minutes around Silverstone. In November, it was very wet. So it didn't really get much time, but it gave me an aspect of the car and a feeling for the car, and I loved it. I freaking love Porsches, honestly. So we went into it, and obviously, again, it was a situation. It was Sebring, and as we know, Sebring's a very tricky circuit. I was going to North America, very new side of the pond. I don't know them circuits very well, very unfamiliar with it. You know, I was jet lag coming over. I was just in Abu Dhabi, and it was just an experience to had, and I wanted to give it my best go. And I was so grateful for them and all the partners that gave me that opportunity, and kind of seen that inner belief in me, and seen what I've been really working hard at for the last season I've been involved with racing. So we went there, and I knew Jan Magnussen is very close, along with Kevin as well. He's very close to the team, and Jan was going to be coaching us and helping us. And as we know, he's 4-time Le Mans winner. He's got his son into F1. He's raced the 12 hours there however many times. And I remember I was like, right, I need a track walk. I need to do everything I can to be fully prepared for this, because I've never, you know, really been to North America or raced there on Sebring. So I knew from the simulator work that I'd done with Motorsports UK Academy, I got in a few hours, not as much time as I wanted to, because I was doing my job with F1 as well. So I got in as much as I could, and I went over then. I done my first track walk, and Jan offered to come with me, which I was really grateful for, and Mark as well, who is obviously the owner. And I was testing his championship winning car that he just won in Porsche Carrera Cup North America in the AM category. So he has obviously raced around there a few times as well. So it was really good to just have my notebook, be writing everything that they're saying, be like, Jodie, watch out for this, watch out for that. And the first time I walked that circuit, I was like, what is this? I was like, it's a cool circuit, but there's a lot of cracks. There's a lot of changing conditions from like tarmac to concrete, and changing grip levels.
A lot, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just been kind of patched up here and there. Makes it exciting for sure, but it was something again that I would have to really keep in mind when I was driving the car. There's one of the corners where there's a concrete like in the middle of it, and it's tarmac for the braking zone. So it's almost like you turn in, and it's also you like lose the grip a little bit at the front. And this is things I had to take into my driving and how I was kind of adapting to the whole thing. But loved it, and I learned so much from Jan. He's an amazing guy. Really, he's a really funny guy actually. He was really cool to hang around and just learn and hear his insights.
Fantastic. That's absolutely brilliant. I mean, I'm just thinking, you've gone from this little sort of craft in the Highlands, and now you're with Jan Magnussen at Sebring. I mean, wow, what a ride! And I mean, one thing about Sebring, I mean, and you'll be able to tell me about this. I mean, I've spoken to a few people who have raced there, like Scott Pruitt and Lynn St James and Danny Sullivan and Brian Redmond, these guys, and I've all asked them the same question. Is it as bumpy as it's famous for? Because it's famous for the bumps. It shakes car to bits. It shakes drivers to bits. I mean, how did you find it in the bumpy section?
I mean, they're not lying. Let's be honest. They're really not lying. There's some bits. I mean, turn one. You probably heard a lot about turn one in the last corner. They're probably the bumpiest. The exit of turn one is really bumpy. The whole of the last corner is really bumpy, to be honest. And as well in a cup car, like cup cars, they love some curbs and stuff like that. They handle well with stuff like that. But as well, going around there with the speed you're carrying, that was a totally different experience for me as well. I remember I started to push a little bit more, and I started to really experience them bumps, and it unsettles so many things. Sometimes if you hit a bump the wrong way, it can really unsettle the car, and that's something in the characteristics almost with the circuit that you really have to take into to your driving as well, because you don't want to hit a bump the wrong way or get into the marbles or lose grip. And I think that's what makes the circuit so exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? It's like rather than avoiding the bumps, it's like, well, they're going to be there. So which
You
bit
just
do I
got to
have
put
to
up with
hit?
them.
You know, it's that
Yeah.
placement
Yeah.
of the car. That's fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. I'm going to come on to sort of what you'd like to do in the future very shortly. I'm just keeping an eye on the time, but just want to sidestep very quickly away from the actual racing. You're part of the Motorsport UK Academy.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah, you've got like Hugh Chambers who runs it. And you've got Karen Chandhock's involved and many other people.
Mm-hmm.
They do a brilliant job in just the all-round aspect of being a driver, not just the actual driving, don't they?
Yeah, and to be kind of selected for the Motorsports UK Academy kind of development programs, amazing. You know, we've seen George Russell, Lando Norris involved with it, and it's essentially the most up and coming, promising drivers in the UK. And it's really cool to have that credibility and get that notice and belief from them as well. And I think probably one of my biggest weaknesses, I would say, in motorsports is my lack of background in it and my lack of network, as in my family. I feel like sometimes I don't have anyone to turn around to and be like, hey, I got this question, or is this the right way to approach things, or just guidance, support. And I preach so much about support systems, especially for someone like me that's got such a fresh perspective, has no history in the sport, doesn't really know many people, and maybe is that, you know, just needs a little bit of care and love and just like, this is how you'd normally do it kind of thing. And they've been amazing. They've been amazing to me, and they're really excited for my future. They've been really supportive over what I'm doing. And if I call them, text them to be like, hey, can I use the simulator? Or can I come round, ask you about something? They're always like, yes, let's put a time in the diary. And it's a really kind of beneficial thing to be involved with.
I think that's absolutely wonderful. I think that's great. You know, it's like a motorsport family, nothing, you know, like separate from your own family, which is great. And it sounds like that's really invaluable to you, as you say, with your lack of experience. I don't like saying that, but you know what I mean. And yeah, that's fantastic. And a weird one actually about Hugh. I bought something on eBay off him a couple of years ago. I didn't even know it was him. It's very, very short story. I've got a window ledge here that's got loads of F1 little models on it. And there was a really cool Takuma Sato one. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. I kind of want that.
Add it to the basket.
Because they're all, exactly, because they're all in chronological order, and I had a bit of a gap. I thought, oh yeah, that's a cool one. And and paid it and everything, and it came up as Mr. Hugh Chambers. I know that name, but he lives just down the road.
Familiar.
Yeah, I thought, I know that name. Where do I know that from? And then it twigged, and I said, oh, I'll be passing where you live, your address. Can I pop in and pick it up? What a big house. And he came to the door, and I went, are you Hugh Chambers from Motorsport UK? He was like, oh, yes. So, yeah, very weird. eBay, of all places.
Lucky guy.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try and grab him at Autosport this year. Anyway, hugely digressed. Excuse me. You touched on the sim thing there. I mean, just to quickly touch on it. Obviously, through lockdown and everything, it was a huge thing for drivers who had been racing beforehand, and the whole sim world, the virtual racing world, and all that kind of a thing. Obviously, you've come in since COVID, but I think people are seeing the importance of it more, aren't they? Rather than, you know, you don't have to go and throw money at booking track days here and there and test sessions. You can actually get a heck of a lot from a sim, which I guess you found with Motorsport UK.
Yeah, no, I think especially for me, like just not having the laps really, and just it's just being able to even learn circuits, learn lines. Like if I didn't go around Sebring, I'd be in a totally different situation going into that cup car. So preparation wise, it's really valuable. Of course, there's a certain limit you can get to on the sim, compared to the real deal. But as in even weather conditions, like learning that in the rain, and learning lines, I mean, it's just good to just blast laps and laps and laps, get that repetition, and for me, it's really valuable because it's a lot of money to get in that car sometimes, and it's a much more cost-effective way to to get some things into your mind, even if it's to do with your technique or your braking.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't have to be the intimate knowledge of a track and bumps and camber and everything else. It's just, as you say, that repetition which keeps you going, which is excellent. And that's something I'm getting my head around, because I used to think, it's just computer games. And then I got absolutely slated for it.
Oh, no.
And rightly so. Rightly so. No, very cool. Just sort of touch on some other bits and pieces before I want to get onto females in motorsport, just to touch on quickly. But you've also done a lot of like automotive shows. I saw a lovely video on YouTube with a lovely young girl showing her around your Porsche. She was very sweet. She was very cool. And and again, it's sort of, from what I can gather, it's important for you to be seen as a female in motorsport and being able to. Just to go back, you said that you didn't really have anyone that you could look up to or relate to apart from Susie Wolff. It seems like you're that person now to to people like that young lady at the automotive show that I saw you at.
Yeah, she was a lovely, lovely young lady who's into motorsports, and when she heard I was being involved in that little show, she was like, oh my god, I've got to interview this girl. And she's just meeting girls like that, young girls. I've met girls that are, like 12 years old that said, Jodie, I want to be an engineer. And I think, like you said, my story can resonate a lot with people that maybe haven't started karting when they were 8 years old, or their family's not involved in motorsports, and just to kind of maybe call it the normal way to get into motorsports as well. It's quite a unique story, and I think it speaks a lot of volume and a lot of belief into younger girls, or even girls my age. I've had a lot of girls that are older than me that have contacted me, and it's weird to think now that I'm now the girl they're looking up to, because I feel like I'm in the position where I'm still looking up to everyone else, and I'm very inexperienced, and I'm going through a lot of challenges and stuff like that, which I'm really proud of. But as well, they're following me through that, and I think that speaks a lot for them. And I think kind of starting from this very unique starting block, for most people it seems impossible with what I've achieved, of what I've been able to do. But as well, I like that. I like shocking people, and I like making an impact, and I'm very proud to be that kind of person that people are following whilst I grow, and hopefully that puts a lot of empowerment into these ladies, and I can make some sort of legacy out of it in some forms.
I think that's fantastic. That's just, I mean, that would be a cool thing to take away, wouldn't it? Being
very cool.
The person that kickstarted a number of careers, whether it be behind the wheel or engineering or whatever it might be within motorsport, which is, that's fantastic. Love that. Someone's just mentioned F1. Can I come to that in just a second? Because you as I said, you've been traveling around to Grands Prix. I think that's correct. How has all that come about for you? Obviously, doing this sort of, is it like a hosting type thing, or I'm just fascinated by it because it looks like a brilliant job.
Yeah, it's a really cool concept. So someone in F1 pretty much came up with this concept of we're called expert hosts, okay? And they had this idea of like, right, okay, we've got hosting these things, but if we want to have more experiences, if it comes to truck tours where people are literally talking about the track, maybe what the racing drivers are feeling like, or if it's garage tours, or if it even is the pit lane kind of stuff, wouldn't it be an idea to have racing drivers to do that actually have an insight into the sport? So you can't really apply for this position. I was referred into it, and I'm very grateful for the people that said, she might be a really good shout for this. I've had quite a few experiences in hospitality when I was younger, and I've done a few things along that side. So it is one of my high points, is I'm good with kind of PR, marketing, kind of hospitality kind of stuff. And I love what I do. It allows me to travel the world, speak to these amazing people. And I remember when I was presented with the opportunity, it was more from, it's really cool to travel around, by the way, and the places I've seen is epic, and I love F1. But the one thing for me that shouted out so much volume was like, okay, I'm going to be probably in circles of people that are chatting about really important stuff, and I can learn from that. I can gain networks. I can just learn as much as I can from these people, because this is the top of motorsports. I'm going to bump into someone that I'm going to learn something from 100%. So as in just broadening my horizons and like being involved in more circles, so I can kind of feed from them, it's probably been like the most amazing thing I brought from it, of course.
That's what I mean. Again, that's the impressive thing is a lot of people might see it as a bit of a jolly and I'm going off to Vegas and Mexico and all this and all that, but you've got a job to do and you want to learn from whoever's there about anything, which, again, is something that you can pass on to, the young girls who come up to you and message you and things like that. So learn at every opportunity, which is fantastic. And if you're going to learn, you might as well do it in an F1 paddock in Las Vegas.
Have a bit of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And why not? Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, I believe, is it like Jade Edwards, I think, in the British Touring Car Championship, she does a lot with one of the teams and of that kind of ilk. And
yeah, so she actually works with me in the Expert Host, so as well I get hang around with Jade Edwards, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. She doesn't take any nonsense. She's great.
She's an amazing person, honestly.
Yeah, don't get on the wrong side of her. Goodness me. No, she's brilliant. She's absolutely brilliant. She does very, very well. And so that links, to a question from like Roger Algar, evening Roger. He says, do you think F1 could be on your radar in the future? I'm assuming he means getting behind the wheel or going down the single seat route, perhaps. Is that something that you might look into?
That's a really good question, actually, and I like answering this question because I think with F1 Academy and W Series, it's such an amazing thing to watch, and it's amazing to watch what Susie Wolff is doing. But personally, for me, I don't want to talk too soon. I've never tested a single seater. If the opportunity was there, I'd of course say yes to anything. As we know, with me, I would say yes to anything. But I've always, I've always had this thing for GT racing. And I think it is because of the kind of team aspect of it as well. My main goal is the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and that's probably why I'm so hooked on Porsche as well, and being a part of their development, because they've had almost 19 wins at Le Mans. Their historic kind of past with Le Mans has been pretty cool, and just the drivers I've kind of followed or watched just being involved in motorsports now, I've just loved GT racing. Loved everything about it, and of course I work in F1. I love F1. I loved the whole thing of it, but I wouldn't say F1 is my main target. I would say Le Mans 24 Hours is my main target.
Awesome. And Porsche got Penske on board, and even though we had Chip Ganassi on the other week, I'm still a Penske fan, so I keep that quiet. But yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So yeah, never say never, but yeah, we'll see. Just quick, you mentioned like W Series and F1 Academy. Now, W Series, really divisive topic for obvious reasons. Is it more inclusivity? Is it causing more separation? I've had like Sabra Cook on here and like Sarah Moore, and they basically credit their careers continuing due to the fact that W Series was essentially a free drive. So you just had to turn up with your helmet, your gloves, and your race suit, and that was it. Or not even a race suit. And obviously Sarah's out racing in India, and Sabra Cook's racing with Porsche in North America and things like that. I was always very pro W Series because it provides opportunities for like females behind the wheel or behind the scenes or whatever it might be. But I can see why people think, is it not better to race against the males? I was just wondering what your thoughts were on W Series, or if it was somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, honestly, I think because I've only been involved with this for 18 months, and I feel like when I got into it was just after COVID. So this is when things with W Series wasn't going as well. Yes. But as someone that's so fresh to it as well, I think I've got such a unique perspective on motorsports. It's such a weird one. But looking at girls from W Series and hearing about W Series and kind of even looking back on what happened to W Series, because I wasn't following it when it was on, just because I wasn't in motorsports, really. Didn't really see it on my radar. It does empower me, and it's provided futures for a lot of the girls were involved with it as well, which is very, very important, and it's given them a platform too. I do agree in the fact of they need a support system outside of that all-female series.
Yeah.
I personally, I've been involved with Formula 1, which has been an all-female thing. But I do see the lack of opportunities for females in this day and age. And I was the only girl on the grid in the Porsche 991. And a lot of people are like, oh, you were? And I was like, yeah, and I'm okay with that. And that might be because I was in horse riding for a long time, and I compete against guys, and that's probably the one only sport as well where you're competing on a very level playing field. So maybe I don't see it as a problem, but as well, being a girl, getting up to them kind of stages and levels now, I've gone through a lot of challenges, and I know that I need to sometimes double prove myself. I know that I'm going to be stereotyped. I know that there's a lot of guys out there that really deserve seats too.
Yeah.
But there does need to be, as in the whole of motorsports, there does need to be much more punch for getting females actually on the grid with guys, and providing them with the tools and opportunities to kind of grow to the same standards that they've got as well.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, I think everyone was getting hung up on getting a driver to F1, Jamie Chadwick doing this, get someone to F1, get someone to F1. And it's like, no, it's not the point. It's the opportunity, as you say, and then having the support structure around it. And,
yeah.
And I think F1 Academy is taking it to the next step with direct links to F1 teams running liveries and
really
things
good.
like that, which is excellent. So yeah, maybe that could be a route for the future. You never know.
You never know. And the one thing I would say about F1 Academy as well is the platform it's creating for these girls. I think that's very powerful, and that's something in motorsports these day and age. Your social media presence and your whole brand aspect is so huge, and they're giving these girls a good platform to speak upon and to be associated with. And I think that's going to provide them hopefully with some fundings and sponsorship, and just getting their name out there, which is good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to be on TV a lot more this year. Which is obviously going to help with the visibility. I had like Carrie Schreiner, she came on a few weeks ago, and she was saying that they wanted to get it right for the drivers and the teams first before they go down the TV route. So that's only going to help again this year. And obviously, I've just had a quick brainstorm. I think there's a lot more females that I'm aware of in motorsport in the last 2 or 3 years, and obviously we know, about like Susie Wolf and Claire Williams. Williams, you've got Jessica Hawkins, you've got like Cleo Collins at Alpine, and you've got Jade Edwards in the BTCC. You got Ida Zetterstrom in the European drag racing. She's just won the European Championship and sort of stuck it to some of the guys, which is cool to see. And then we got Catherine Legg, and the Iron Dames are doing great stuff as well. I mean, it's getting there, isn't it? I mean, and it's all based on ability. It's not based on box ticking, which is a big thing at the moment, isn't it? But and it's great that these talented females are getting opportunities, based on the fact that they're really good at it, which is the way it should be, isn't it? But you need to have the opportunity in the first place.
Yeah, it's one of the things in motorsports and anything in life. It's getting the opportunity to prove yourself and working hard, and it's just that kind of like that circle. But as well, like the one thing I've always said coming into this is like the minute you've got your helmet on, your race suit on, you're all the same, you're all in the same position, and how you perform out on track is should really talk some volume, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And things like W Series are giving people the opportunity to go on and do other things, as you said. So that's all good, and long may it continue. We all, if you're good at something, try and be given the opportunity, or work for the opportunity to prove it, which is great. Right, we sort of touched very quickly on the future. Obviously, we're not going to give too much away. I don't know if you've got anything to pipeline. I'm not going to ask any pressing questions. Just one second. Roger Algara said a young girl Carter to watch for in the future is Maria Roberto, who is in junior karting at the moment. Keep your eyes peeled, folks. Maria Roberto, look for her. Cool. Thank you, Roger. The future. You said that you got a passion for like GT racing. I mean, I saw fairly early on in your website and everything. You mentioned about the 24 hours of Spa and 24 hours of the Nürburgring and racing in DTM, things like that. Obviously, the GT route is where your kind of heart is. Obviously, you wouldn't say no to anything, but
of course not.
But GT is where the heart is, I suppose.
Yeah, majorly. And ever since I got into motorsports, of course, I was introduced straight away into GTs. But the more I've dived into it, and the more I've been opened up to single seaters and stuff, and I'd love to test a single seater. I'd love to get involved in that, but just GT history, DTM history, and just following everything, it's so exciting. And I just think there's some of the best drivers out there that have driven it, and such close racing. And honestly, I've got such a fire inside of me to race against some of the best drivers in the world. And GT kind of gives you that opportunity in some forms as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And very cool. I think like Liam Lawson raced in DTM recently, and he's obviously we know how good he is, like Sheldon van der Linde, guys like that, Maximilian Goetz, and all these guys. I think one of the past interviewees said these are all guys that are F1 drivers that never got the opportunity. You know, they are that good. So yeah, that'd be cool, wouldn't it, to be in there, get into.
That would be very cool.
Yeah, and I think we're going the right way about it. Absolutely. But obviously, there's sponsorship and backing and finances, which is another question that always comes up, isn't it? So,
always a question.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Okay, I mean, it's been an hour and 25 minutes. I always like to end with some like fun questions and stuff. Well, I think they're fun. You might not. I don't. We'll have to see. When you're not like motorsporting, obviously it's become your job now. But I mean, before it all went a bit crazy, what were you doing outside the motorsport world?
As in a job or as in hobbies?
As in job and just
God. Before motorsports, my life used to be very different. Of course, I was an equestrian, so I've been riding horses since I was like 4 years old, and that was competitive. I was luckily, my mum was obsessed with horses, and she put me on a Shetland pony at 2 years old, and maybe that's where my fearless kind of trait has come from, with eventing and being involved with that kind of stuff. And I think as well, riding horses, it really does meld over quite well with the fact of, you know, you're understanding the feeling of the horse, you know, the bond you have with it, and just the natural feel for everything that's going on, and the understanding and the patience, and just analysing every situation. I think that goes very well with the racing side of things. I had my own business as well. I was in the kind of affiliate marketing side of things and investing side of things. So yeah, I've been doing a lot since I was left school at 16, and really always been a go-getter. And when I've got my kind of mindset in something, I've always kind of achieved as much as I can.
Yeah, clearly, having your own business and then going into motorsport. Wow, impressive. Excellent. Okay, outside like GT racing, DTM, things like that, is there anything that you kind of look at and think, oh, I'd like to have a go at that, whether it be, I don't know, NASCAR or Australian supercars or IndyCar or banger racing or anything?
Just to do with cars or anything?
Anything. Any racing, any kind of racing styly thing.
Honestly, this sounds pretty crazy, and I don't think I'll be able to achieve this because I'm not good in two wheels, but I like dirt bikes quite a lot. Dirt bike racing.
So I think that's pretty good. I love bikes anyway.
Oh God, I'm not gonna kick you off now, Rich. You'll waffle on for ages.
You're right, I will, absolutely. But that's cool, a bit of dirt biking. That would be very cool.
That would be cool.
That would be great. Okay. This feels like a daft question. What's the best racing car you've ever driven?
Porsche 992. But I have driven the Evo 2 Lamborghini Super Trofeo, and that they're very different, but that was an experience as well.
Very cool. Have you got a favourite circuit that you've driven so far? Of the handful that you've done?
Brands Hatch GP. That's my favourite.
See that?
Good circuit.
Almost every time that comes up, doesn't matter what age the guest is, where they've raced, Brands Hatch always comes up, which is fantastic.
Everyone says it's their favourite. It's such a cool circuit.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. You followed a bit of motorsport when you were younger, I guess. But did you have a favourite driver when you were younger, and do you have one now, without getting anyone into trouble?
When I was growing up, no. To be truthfully honest and transparent, no, I didn't have a favourite driver. I came into this not really following anyone. Of course, I knew of Susie Wolff, and I'm really appreciative of what she's doing now. I know she was from Oban. We went to the same high school. You know, I know of her parents. But as well with what she's done when I've been very young, has been a bit out of my reach in some forms as well. But yeah, I would probably say I didn't follow anyone when I got into motorsports, but probably now. There's a hard one. I feel like because I'm involved in F1, I'm going to say an F1 driver. I'd probably say, you probably heard this a lot, but Lewis Hamilton, just in the fact of his journey to F1.
Yeah.
I think it's very unique, and it's something that obviously has empowered a lot of people. Yeah. So I'd probably see Lewis with his morals and stuff as being cool to follow and kind of see what he's been talking about.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And I know people don't always agree with that, but there's a lot more to him than just racing, and he's trying to do a lot of good with who he is, which is always a good thing. So yeah, and I mean that feels like it comes back to you, because obviously you're doing some some very good things with who you are and what you've learned in a short space of time. And I guess I guess you want to be successful racing, but I guess it's just as important for you to be able to give something back, even though you have just started yourself. I guess it's important for you to give something back and like leave something behind when you step away, hopefully in many years' time.
Yeah, no, and like I really appreciate the Iron Dame girls and the team I've been hooked on for a very long time, and I've been really eager to be involved with them and just hope that they notice me or notice my potential one day. But yeah, it's almost like recently I've really realized the kind of power of my platform and the uniqueness of my story, and how much it kind of like moves the room in some forms. I mean, I've recently been involved with the Prince and Princess of Wales Hospice in Glasgow. This is a children's hospital. And I feel like it just gives me an avenue to highlight things and to maybe add a bit of excitement to something like the Kids' Day or something like that. If anything I can do to add value back, if it's to my country of Scotland or anything to do with like girls coming to motorsports, I'm normally always eager to get involved with Girls on Track UK. I done something with Extreme E, so we literally had like local schoolgirls from Scotland, and these are like local primary schools, like a primary school I went from in Scotland, and they're not exposed really to motorsports in general, and it was quite cool. Extreme E were in Scotland, so we had these girls doing driver changes with me. We had Chloe Grant there. She was telling her about her story, so it's just nice to like just put a little image in their head, so maybe next year they'll be like, oh, you know what, actually I want to be an engineer next year.
That's fantastic. I think that's probably the best takeaway from this, isn't it? You can focus on what you're doing, but there's a lot more going on, and we all need to be aware of it and hopefully help it all along, which I think is which is fantastic. Brilliant. Perfect. I think that is a perfect place to end it. Thank you, everyone who's tuned in to this one and in all the chats this year. And I said this is the last live of the year. Thank you, everyone who's tuned in, for the comments and the questions and everything else like that. But of course, thank you most to you, Jodie, for coming on and having a chat and sparing a couple of hours of your evening to come and tell us your story. And it's been fantastic, and it's going to inspire a lot of people, I'm sure.
No, thank you, Rich, for having me, and it's been a pleasure to be on this little live stream. I'm loving these live streams. I've never done one before. We need to do more of them.
It's cool, isn't it? Because you never know what's going to happen, and you got to roll with it.
Yeah, I know. We're good at waffling, so it's okay.
Love a waffle. This is why there's an end stream button, so people don't get tired of us. But no, thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate all your support, and again, many thanks, Jodie, and we'll see everyone very, very soon. Until then, Merry Christmas, and we'll see you soon.